Hello everyone, it's Yuri Kasdorp here from Oracle Red Bull Racing Esports, and we are back with a new iRacing season. We got the new GT3s to have a look at. A lot of things changed, how the cars drive changed as well, and you might be able to see this is a car we haven't used too much. It's the McLaren MP4-12C. It's quite tricky to drive. All the cars seem to be quite tricky to drive this season. We're going to be driving at Monza, so Monza, a lot of straights, a lot of slow corners, lots of important braking zones, and a couple curbs that we have to navigate over to get the speed out of the car. How do we do that? We're going to have a look at it in this video. So without further ado, let's get into the lap. Right, so here we are about to start our lap in the new McLaren. And with these new, with the new updates on the GT3, we are now running again very low downforce for Monza. So we got really good top speed, but we have to be careful because the rear doesn't have much grip. We want to focus good on exits, and we want to make sure that our entries are smooth, same as the throttle application, because the rear wants to start stepping out. It's going to be a bit more tricky. The McLaren's quite tricky, but if it's drivable at any track, it will be at this track. It's very good low speed, very good on the straights, not so good on high speed, which we don't have much of here. Turn 1, we're going to be looking at the left, the end of the bush. Just before that, we start braking. Get towards the inside rather early. Try to go over the curb on the inside to set up for a good exit. Got the big run up until second chicane. And second chicane, we're going to be looking at the right side. And there's an entrance road just before the 100, which we'll use for the braking. Right here. Use all the curb on the inside. Careful to not use too much of the second curb. Last one, we want to late apex. We use all the runoff here, get on the outside. It's not an off track anymore. Brake early here, set it for a good exit. Again, all the runoff on the outside. And you see, because we trimmed off all the downforce on the rear, the car's very twitchy now. Running up to Ascari, want to brake just after the right, the entrance road. Keep it tight here, set up for a good exit. And then the run to this corner they renamed, I don't know what they renamed to. It's not important, it will always be parabolic other hearts. Brake just before the green on the left ends. And careful with the throttle application, slowly let the car run to the outside. And then to start finish line, and that's a lap around Monza. Right, so here we are to start the lap, looking from the outside. Of course, run up to turn 1 is just going to be a straight line. It's going to be the prime overtaking opportunity here to the inside if you want to make a pass. Long straight coming up, heading up to this. And for turn 1 braking, at least on race fuel, I found like just after the 150 between this and the end of the bushes here. Brake all the way on the left, and then you can brake the left till this point, but what I found to be more useful is to slowly start cheating towards the inside. That way you don't have to brake down as much and turn really heavily immediately here. You can kind of brake in a straight line towards the apex, which is something normally you don't want to do. But because there's almost no run between turn 1 and 2, it doesn't really matter how fast you take turn 1 or how good your exit is, as long as the line into turn 2 is alright. That way, if you go straight for the apex from here on, so turning quite early, straight for the apex, you can brake a tiny bit later, you can use a bit of more of the braking performance to turn 1. Then you want to make sure the left side tire is staying on this white line, going over the curb. And what you want to look for is basically set up your car so you set up for a good exit out of turn 2. So you don't want to end up out of turn 1 all the way to the inside curb on the entry here. Make sure in the middle here to have a decent line going onto the curb. Again, we want to use this curb on the inside a bit. It doesn't upset the car too much. And then slowly go into the throttle here. Make sure that you've got the traction before you go flat out like I do here. Not in the TC too much. Now we got to run up to turn 2. And turn 2, as we said in the lap itself as well, we're going to be looking at the right side. and there's this access road on the right side here, right after the barrier. This point here is what I use for braking. If you're missing the chicane, brake a bit earlier. The chicane is all about the speed you can carry through it, rather than the braking point here. If you brake slightly too late, you maybe gain 1 or 2 hundreds on the braking, you're gonna lose a couple tenths even in the chicane. So make sure to brake a bit earlier, that you're consistent in the chicane. That's what helped for me. And then turn in quite late. And we want to use a lot of this curb on the left side, again to make sure that we got a good run out of the turn 4, the right hand curb. Right hand curb, want to use about half the car, same as here. We want to use the right tires on the white line, otherwise you get a slowdown. Left side, just hop the curb as well. Make sure that the left side tires are on the track here. I found this one to be a bit more strict than the first left-hander. And then you can go a bit onto the gravel here on the exit again, because the exit straight is not that long. Running a bit more speed and touching the gravel a bit won't give you an off track, won't punish you too much. Then the last is always tricky because we set up the car at Monza for the straights. And these are some of the only high speed corners or medium speed corners that we have on the track. So on entry here, the rear will be very light if you set up your car to go fast on the straights. So you want to brake in a straight line here, apex late, and go on throttle rather early. If you wait with throttle too long, the rear might step out. So if you want a bit more stability, make sure to go on throttle rather early, not flat out yet. And the track limits here used to be the white line, but now again we can run all the way to, I think, to the left side of this gravel. That's the reference line I use. So run quite wide out of this, and then the same again for the second last mode. Make sure you brake nice and early and set up for that good exit. Got a very, very long straight after this one, so the exit here is very important. So brake early, throttle early. Normally when I'm at the apex here, I can take the curbs. I can either take it or avoid it. It doesn't change too much for me. As long as I'm on power here by the time I'm at the apex. That makes sure I get a good exit from there. Again, long straight running up to Ascari. Ascari, we're going to be looking at the right, and we're going to brake just after the exit road. So you might see a lot of the corners here. I'm not using the brake markers itself, but these small access roads. They're quite close to the road, so they're quite easy to spot as well. So I brake just after that, before the 100, get all the way to the right side, and then what we want to do here on the left side is use a tiny bit of this anti-cut on the left side here. If you use too much of this, you'll get an off track or the car bounces up. So you want to turn in quite late and use a tiny bit of this this anti-cut here. And as you might notice as well, I've got quite a big angle going from the outside onto this curb over the anti-cut. And what that does, it makes the car kind of hop across and up a bit over this anti-cut, and you'll kind of glide over it without hitting it head on. It looks like this. You see how the car doesn't get upset too much the moment I hit the anti-cuts, because I just hit the curb before and it hops up a bit because of that. So if you turn in too early, if you come in from here and then hit the anti-cut at the same point, your car might bounce up and you lose quite a lot of time. Bring it over to the left, and then you want to either completely avoid these anti-cuts on the right or drive along the right side of them. I think I hit them a tiny bit much this lap. I didn't upset the car too much. And then the left-hander, again, we want to do the same as the first left-hander here, where we want to use this colored curb to kind of jump the car up a bit. If you go too early on this and then hit the anti-cut, the car bounces up too much and it upsets it too much. And then again on the exit here, because we trimmed out all the wing, it's quite tricky keeping the car, so you want to have small steering inputs. The front has more grip than the rear, so if you turn the wheel too much, the front will comply, but the rear won't, and we have oversteer. And last corner, Parabolica. I brake about 75% of the way of this green bit here. Again, I don't really look at the 100, I look at the end of this and brake a bit before that. So it looks around this, and from the car, looks about this point here. So that point we start braking, and we try to brake a lot in a straight line. There's a long straight coming after this, so we want to apex a bit late. Don't brake straight for the apex like we tried to do in turn 1. And then we try to have, at the moment we get to the corner here, we want to have the car rotated quite well, so that we can quite early start accelerating and slowly start accelerating more and more until the car can handle full throttle. Again, because such long straights here, we trimmed away all the grip on the rear of the wing, we need to be patient. And if you've done all of that right, you get at the end here, right up to turn 1 again, good exit from there, and lap time in this case is about a 46 mid. I'm not sure exactly how competitive those are. When the cars just get updated, there's a lot of new things to find in the setup, new things to find in driving. We'll see. I think if you do these lap times at the start of the week, at least you'll be very competitive. Right, so that's how to drive the McLaren around Monza. It's quite tricky this season. As you can see, the rear wants to step out a bit more than it did before. The front is a bit less planted too, but it's a lot of fun. I can't wait to get started this new season in the new GT3 cars with the new damage model as well. If you want to see more guides like this for the upcoming weeks, make sure to subscribe to the channel and we'll see you there.